Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Roll the Dice with Dave. I'm your host, Dave Rivera, and I'm glad to be back with a great guest that's going to be coming on in just a second. But before we get started, anybody that's out there watching this recording on Facebook or YouTube, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe to Roll the Dice with Dave so you can get all the latest and greatest from Roll the Dice with Dave. Now, without any further hesitation, I want to go ahead and bring out our guest because I'm really excited to have this individual on. We haven't spoken in a long time, and this is definitely going to be a treat for me. So I am going to bring out our guest, Tremayne Smith. Tremayne, how are you doing this evening?
Good evening, everybody. It's so good to be here. Appreciate it,
I
Dave.
tell you what, it's good to have you. We haven't been in the same space in a long time, and when I reached out to you and asked if you were available, and you said you were, I was so excited. It was almost like that same feeling you get on Christmas morning when you get to open a gift. That's the feeling I have. I'm so excited. I decided to break out the pirate gear in honor of having you on because you are definitely going to be known as one of the greatest pirates of all time. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing good. I'm here. So, it's fantastic and doing pretty good. Just fresh off of a trip to Greenville for homecoming. So, I'm still kind of amped up about that. So, but I'm really, really happy to be here and really appreciate the invitation.
Oh, no, thank you so much. So why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself, and you maybe don't have to go into too much detail because I'm going to ask you a few questions just about your background, but just introduce yourself to the audience so they get a little bit of a better idea who Tremayne Smith is.
Got it. Well, thank you all for joining this broadcast. So as Dave said, my name is Tremayne Smith. I proudly hail from Salisbury, North Carolina. I am an identical twin, grew up on a farm, went to East Carolina University, of course, and double majored in music education and political science. Is pretty active on campus, and I've been very fortunate to serve in a variety of roles, both in Congress, on Capitol Hill, in public education, and now in the financial sector, working for the largest financial institution in the country and one of the largest in the world. So I've taken the scenic route. So that's just a bit about me, but we'll get more into that as we discuss this, as we get to the discussion.
We definitely will. We definitely will. And as we talk a bit about you mentioned you were a twin. So still here while we're in the introduction piece, what is it like? And I don't know if you can give us any insight, but what's it like for your brother having you as a twin? And the reason I say that, right? And before we came on, we mentioned the connection that your brother and I have, that he went to Livingstone College. Mm-hmm. I was actually at Livingstone College for a little while. What do you know what it's like for him having you as a twin? And I say that not from like that, not that he's not successful, but if he ever goes to Greenville,
right?
Do people walk up to him and go, Tremayne, what's up? Is it good to see you? What's it like for him?
Well, I think we've had very similar experiences in that regard, because there have been plenty of times I've come home from Greenville to Salisbury and been at cookout, and someone will run up to me, Dwayne. I'm like, I'm Tremayne, it was twin. And they're like, stop kidding. And I literally have to pull out my license to prove it. And I'm just like, Dwayne, please never owe anybody any money because they're coming after me. And equally with him, he's come up to DC a few times when I worked on the Hill, and we played some jokes on the staff, let him go sit at my desk and pretend to be me. And it's just like this mind warp. So we still have a lot of fun with it.
So usually with twins, people that know twins really well, usually there's some kind of identifying characteristic that somebody that really knows you is able to pick up on and know that you are not the twin that everybody thinks it is.
Uh-huh.
Do you two have that kind of distinguishing characteristic, or are you two both so similar in voice and look and mannerisms that it's just that hard? Because I know you'd be able to fool me. I know it, right? And it's because I would just be so excited. I'd be like, oh man, that's Tremayne.
Right.
And it could be Dwayne, and he would be able to take me for a ride, and I wouldn't even know all the better. But do you guys have that distinguishing characteristic?
Well, we do, but interesting enough, we are a very rare form of identical twin. So identical twin in and of itself is an anomaly. We take it a step beyond that. We're mirror image identical twins. And so we have the same body markings. Everything's just flipped. So I have a mole that's here. His is there. I'm left. He's right-handed. Now, I'm a little more extroverted, a little more animated. He's much more the cool twin, laid back. I mean, he was Will, I was Carlton. So I mean, that's the personality.
Oh, that is awesome. I love the reference.
Once we start talking, I think you would very quickly determine who was who. But just by looks, I think you'd have to do a few double takes.
Okay, no, I like that. Will and Carlton, I definitely like that. I want to go ahead and move into our next segment. It's referred to as the review. This gives you a chance to maybe talk about something, and it could literally be anything that has caught your eye that you really maybe want to share with people. And I want to give mine first because I didn't expect to get hooked on this, but I am hooked. I'm going to go ahead. I have fall break coming up next week. I'm going to binge watch this show. It's on Netflix, and it's called Squid Game.
Yes.
So my daughter was watching an episode, my son and his girlfriend all sitting down chilling, and I'm like, what is this? And it just sucked me in.
Yeah.
But I missed enough that I said I don't want to see anymore because I want to catch the whole thing. So my thing, even though I haven't seen it, 10 minutes of watching it, it drew me in, and I'm going to be binge watching it on Monday of next week, the first day of fall break. Squid Game is what I'm going to do. So Tremayne, what is your maybe thing that you think people need to check out?
Well, they're good for you for Squid Game because it's brilliant. I watched it in a whole day.
So you've watched the whole thing?
The whole day. It sucked me in, and I was like, okay, this is my Saturday. But something else I think that will catch your eye, and it caught my eye last night, and it's very recent and relevant. There is a North Carolina legislator named Charles Graham. He is the only Native American in the North Carolina General Assembly. He's of the Lumbee Nation. He's running for Congress in the 9th district, so that's south of Charlotte and eastward towards Scotland County and all. Just a brilliant opening ad, and just very compelling. And I think you should all check it out. So check out Charles Graham running for the 9th congressional district in North Carolina. You will not be disappointed.
I will go ahead and make a note of that and check that out. Thank you so much for that. Now, you did mention you recently took a trip to Greenville for homecoming.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to dog Greenville, right? It's a great place. But have there been any places from a hospitality standpoint that you've traveled recently that you're just like, oh, man, this was unbelievable? You got anything for us?
My fiance and I actually not too long ago took a trip to St. Martin. And we spent a week there, and St. Martin's really neat. It's an island nation in the Leeward Islands, so south of the Dominican Republic and south of Cuba, and east of Cuba. It's divided between the French side and the Dutch side, so it's a dual nation island, and it was just beautiful, historic, lush greenery, lots of attractions, but also lots of nature. So we had a very good week, just unplugged and away to recharge and have some fun in the sun.
That is awesome. So you mentioned fiance. Yeah. The last time we talked, you did not have a fiance. Yes. So this is a relatively, how long have you been engaged? When did it happen? Are there any plans as far as the immediate future? I know we talked a little bit about it, but let us know more. Actually, I'll ask you this. So I'll keep it hospitality related because you already did something really dope with the St. Martin. Has there been talk about a potential honeymoon spot? Where would the honeymoon spot be?
Well, I think probably the honeymoon is absolutely going to have to be Paris, France. I mean, it's just I've had a good time. Keenan has never been, has always wanted to go. Actually, took French in high school. Has family that lives in Paris, so we have to go. But yeah, recently got engaged on our 3-year anniversary on August 25th. So we've been together for 3 years, and it was just the right time. And so while we've not yet decided a date, we have some impressions of, like we have seasons, like we fancy over one another, and probably going to do it here in DC. It's just equidistant from North Carolina, where I'm from, and from Connecticut, where Keenan's from. So we're starting to get the blueprints of plans. So definitely keep you updated.
That's awesome. So have you taken Keenan down to Greenville to experience an ECU football game?
And he had to wear purple too, so that was part of the deal.
Did he rock the purple too? Oh, that's awesome. Now, where did Keenan go to school? What's his
He did his undergraduate at William and Mary.
Okay.
His first time at ECU was 2 years ago when we played William and Mary, so that was a fun game.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
He's getting his doctorate now from Vanderbilt in education leadership.
Vanderbilt
in Tennessee, in the Peabody School.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Congratulations to you and to Keenan
Thank you.
on your engagement. So now moving into the next section, this is called in your opinion. And there's a lot of things that have been going on, and I tried to focus it down because the original discussion, I was like, hey, I want to ask you about the COVID vaccination boosters, or telling people not to gather again.
Yeah.
But I want to switch it up and just ask a question first before we look at going into it. Have you been following all the stuff with Facebook lately?
Yes.
Right. So, and I want to get your opinion because I was asked my thoughts on it today.
Mhm.
How coincidental do you think that with all this stuff coming up with Facebook, that it went down for like 8 hours and all its, do you think there's something more to it than just it went down?
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. And I think you could, one, I think you could have set your watch by it after after the congressional hearings, one, and then the whistleblower report coming out and being publicized. I mean, you could have set your watch like, this is going to go down. So no, it wasn't. It didn't surprise me. If anything, it just reinforced the narrative of how troubling social media can be, aspects of social media can be, and how important and necessary it is to start taking a really hard look at that.
Yeah, so we were talking about it in my strategic management class,
Mm.
and one of the students goes, "Hey, Rivera, what do you think about the whole Facebook thing?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, what a coincidence! If that's not strategic,
Right.
I don't know what is."
Right.
Like before a subpoena goes out, right? So they wipe
Right.
everything out.
Oh,
There was
right.
just so much there that just went into it, and I was like, "Oh yeah." It wouldn't be surprised if now all of a sudden this video just disappears from
Bingo.
Facebook, right? So, but I wanted to get your thoughts on the COVID vaccination, the boosters that have been talking about. They're saying maybe be careful regarding family gatherings.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on just kind of everything that's being pumped out in the media as far as getting the booster shots, trying not to gather so much with family? I just want to get your take on it, and maybe if you have any insights or anything that you want to add, just to kind of let the audience know.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I think we all should have just a daily reminder and a thought of the 700,000 people who've died from COVID. And now more so, the people who are dying and can prevent their own deaths by simply being vaccinated. So get vaccinated. If you're eligible, when you're eligible, get the booster. They save lives. Vaccines are 99% effective. Even if you get COVID, you very likely will not experience symptoms, and you most certainly will not be hospitalized and won't die. So do that. As far as the family gatherings, I think, we should all exercise common sense. Last year, in the thick of it all, and we're still in the thick of it, in the thicker thick of it all, before vaccines were available, I come from a big family. Family is everything. For me, it's my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and then my family. And so the prospect of not getting together for Thanksgiving and Christmas, it was heartbreaking. I mean, it really was. But we also understood that best to be around for next year if we want to continue.
Yeah.
So we scaled back a lot. We really scaled back. We took precautions. I mean, before you went to the house, you had your temperature checked. If you felt unwell, you did not come. We wore masks. For the most part, we were reasonably distant. So we took precautions. I think we should still have those sorts of wits about us coming in this holiday season.
Thank you so much for your thoughts on that. Now we're going to move into the next segment that I call Future POTUS, right?
All right.
So because ever since I first met you, you just had this aura about you. And I remember a lot of people saying that's the future president of the United States right there. And I said, well, I hope so, because he definitely has my vote. So I want to start this conversation kind of going back to the beginning. I met you at East Carolina before you were the student body president. And what I most remember you for before that role was seeing you on Saturdays.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And for those that don't know, you were the drum major at East Carolina University, and not just a drum major. You were known as like the drum major.
Yeah. The head drum major, yeah.
Yeah. And the life you brought to games. I mean, you were a celebrity. Actually, you are a celebrity in Greenville. People know, because you also recently were back in Greenville for a ceremony where you are immortalized for eternity as one of the student body presidents at the new dedication ceremony.
That's right.
So tell me a little bit about what was life like for you when you first got to ECU, then as you kind of continued your life at ECU, and what was it like for you in that last hurrah, like your last semester before you graduated? And I know that's a lot of pieces to that question. So
Sure.
give me a little bit of the beginning, middle, and kind of, it's not the end because you're always tied to it, but
Sure.
a little bit of that last hurrah as a student at ECU.
Excuse me. Well, I was the first. I'll start kind of from the end and bring us back. I was the first male in my family to graduate from college. I edged my brother out just barely. I mean, he decided to work first and then went to school, so I got him beat, so I can claim that title. But so I was the first male, so I went to college with that in mind. That I knew I was a trailblazer. Now, education was always very important in my family, constantly reinforced and encouraged, and so I sort of I owed it to the people who'd gone before, one who could not have the opportunity that I had, that blazed a trail and cleared the path. But I also owed it to cousins who were coming up right behind me who would have even more opportunity than I had. So there was this duality of responsibility that I always considered. So going to college, I knew I had to do well. I didn't have a backup plan. I didn't have a family safety net. It was do it or do it. I mean, there was just no other option. So I had to get good grades because I had scholarships that depended on that. And I just had this sense of a standard of excellence that I grew up with this work ethic. If you don't have time to do it right, when will you have time to do it over? And if you're going to do it to make your family proud, do it to make yourself proud. So, through music education was my first major, and happy to, I'm a 21 year, I've been playing French horn for 21 years.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh yeah.
My daughter's a music education major now at West Texas A&M, and she plays the French horn.
Oh, well, I love her already.
That is crazy.
That's incredible.
I tell you, I did not realize that. Oh man, I didn't mean to interrupt, but that's just too much of the universe just talking to us right there. Yeah.
But no, so going through that and then, running for student body president, taking on a second major, political science, that really colored my experience, and it really showed me what was possible. And now, granted, there were barriers. There still are barriers. There are systemic barriers, and we'll get into that later, I'm sure. But my thing was, I was a hurdler in high school, a multiple consecutive year state medalist. So I was used to overcoming obstacles for sport, and so I just had to figure out the resources and then just have the will to do it. So my starting at East Carolina, my first day in Greenville was so different than when I left. I mean, I left with, nearly 100% name recognition on the campus, a known figure around Greenville, known for all the right reasons.
Yeah, all the right. Yeah, I was about to say all the right reasons.
All the right reasons. I commanded respect because I believe you show people how to treat you, and I was going to be respected, but also I'm going to respect you. And so I think I left there having left a legacy because, as was the case with me, those who followed after me in student government, let's say, they ran for president and won. So there's been like this line of presidents that we're like a family. We coached one another, we mentored one another. And so that's been a beautiful thing. But so looking at things like the wall or even the trustees fountain, to go back and see my name etched on the campus forever, and it's not on a cement, it's not on a gravestone, and I'm etched in somewhere. Woo! Praise the Lord. So, but I do continue to look forward to ways that I can stay involved on campus, and I'm on a few advisory boards and things of that nature. Look, I look forward to one day maybe being the first Black chancellor before I'm president. So we'll see.
Oh, I tell you, that would be so cool, right? To Tremayne B. Smith, Chancellor of East Carolina University. I know one chancellor who would love to see that. I would definitely venture out to say Chancellor Ballard would love to see that, right? So just to touch on another little piece that you mentioned, you started with music education, but then you also did political science. Did you always see yourself as being the student body president at ECU, or was it something that you went, I can do that, let me look at doing this? Or did you go into ECU going, I'm going to do A, B, and C and become student body president?
No, I'd done student government in middle and high school. Excuse me. And when I got to college, I thought I'm done with SGA. I'm gonna fully devote my life to music. Then Carrie Brockett, who was running for president and a former president, she looked at me and was like, "Hey, you want to get involved?" I was like, "Okay, fine." And then one thing led to another, and before I knew it, it was about to be my senior year. I was having a lunch with Chancellor Ballard in his office, and he looked at me and was like, I don't get involved in student government, student politics. He's like, "But Tremayne, you need to run." And I went home thinking, "Oh my gosh, now there's a mandate. I have to do it." So I did it. And then I thought, well, what does it mean? It meant that I needed to groom the next slate of leaders to do it and to fulfill the promises and campaign promises. So it wasn't anything I had imagined I would do. Certainly wasn't anything that I wanted to do. I wanted not to do it. But, life just works out the way it's supposed to, I guess.
No, it does. And, I love that you were having lunch with Chancellor Ballard. It's amazing how many people he impacted over his time.
Yeah.
I know I was sad when he stepped down as ECU Chancellor, because I got there as Chancellor Ballard got there, right? I got there in 2004, and I think Ballard got there in 2004 as well. So I was there throughout my entire career, and Chancellor Ballard was there through that whole time. I was part of the Leadership Academy that Chancellor Ballard had. So there were a lot of connections there. And I'm glad you ran for president, because one of the things that I enjoyed was that it was one of the times where I was there that I felt such a connection to the student body.
Mm-hmm.
You allowed faculty to feel so connected.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that I am so glad I got to experience while you were there. Moving on now to the next piece, right? Because that was, I guess we'll call that kind of chapter one.
Sure.
Then you leave, right? So now you're graduating and you move on. And I actually had my facts incorrect, so I corrected this. You go to Washington D.C. next, and you're with, was it Senator Hagan?
Yep, that's right.
What you said. What was that like going from? All right, I'm gonna frame this for a second. Right. Salisbury, North Carolina, Greenville, North Carolina, to Washington D.C. to work for a senator.
It was otherworldly. I mean, I as a kid, I watched C-SPAN for fun. I mean, I loved. Remember at Carlton? Didn't I tell you I was Carlton? I loved it. And so to graduate, and then a month later, I'm in D.C. working for a United States senator that I helped elect. I knocked doors for her. I was part of her campaign, the Obama 2008 campaign, the whole slate. And it was just, I was grateful every single day walking those halls, because my great-great-grandparents were the first generation born out of the institution of slavery. And so walking those halls meant something to me. It meant how far we had come, but it also continued to remind me how far we have to go. But I carried that around with me. But it was an incredible experience. Senator Hagan, she single-handedly, honestly with a lot of help, but like she had the vision. She cultivated an entire generation of young Democrats who are either themselves running for office, like Christina Henderson here in DC. She's a councilwoman at large. Other folks working on the Hill in education, in banking. So she helped to do that. And so, she's since passed on. But if there's anything I will take from her leadership, there was this grace and decency about her, but also she was tough as nails. So I love that. And then, I had another call, and so I came back to North Carolina.
Well, and that was about to say, so that calling and that passion. But before we get into that, so one of my favorite people in the entire world, she was, I believe, Annie Snodgrass when she was a student at ECU. Now Annie Middleburg, she goes, it says something that she graduated 8 years ago and still knew your name and who it was when she saw the post. And I agree. It's a testament to who you are, right? So now let's get into, now you're here, you are in DC.
Yeah.
I never thought I would see you, right, leading the band from Rocky Mount at a homecoming. Because I remember that day when I saw you, and I was like, Tremayne, and I ran out and I gave you a big old hug, and I was just so excited to see you. What was it that drove you inside to go, you know what, I'm going to lead? Because some people would say you were living the dream.
Absolutely.
Right? At that point, to then go to Rocky Mount and take over. I believe you were the band director
That's right.
at Rocky Mount High School
That's right.
to make that transition.
Yeah. Well, music has always been my first love. Always a passion. Grew up in church music. It was very formative to me. Grew up with music around the house. So when I was working for Senator Hagan, I really started to feel this tug, this, some people call it a calling. I answered that call. I truly felt this pull, and the conditions were right. It was a great opportunity to go back and to rebuild a program that had at one time in history been the best program in the country. There are ebbs and flows, and so when I took it over, it was certainly in the most. It was in a position where it had the most potential to grow. So I decided I was going to do that, and in 3 years, we had grown from 25 members to 150. I was Teacher of the Year my first year for the high school district Teacher of the Year, in contention for Regional Teacher of the Year. I mean, we put in the work. So it was a calling, and it really enforced in me very early on not to let other people's impressions or their hopes for your life guide your own life. I could have very easily stayed in the Senate, been a junior staffer. It had been fine, but I didn't feel like I was contributing in a way that I had the ability to do. And I certainly wasn't exercising the God-given abilities that I had with music and leadership and doing that through my passion. So I wrote my own ticket. And so I encourage people to do that themselves.
And one of the things that excites me to hear you say that is you followed your passion.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing that I think a lot of people sometimes discount is the faith that you have.
Yeah.
There's an appreciation when somebody says, well, I just grinded this out. But you said you answered a calling, that you had faith in that what you were doing was the right thing to do. And I love that. I also want to add this, right? Because you hear the saying that all men are created equal. And I'm going to go ahead and say this, that is not the case, right? And the reason I say that is, I mean, just look at you. You're good at everything you do, right? You are good at everything you do. You are handsome. You are articulate. You are charismatic. No, we are all not created equal. Right? Right now, I'm sitting here and I feel pretty accomplished in my life.
Yes,
right now, I'm feeling there's like Tremayne Smith and the rest of us. Right?
No.
Really do. Oh man, but you are such an inspiration. So I want to transition now. So here you are, Rocky Mount, getting all these accolades, helping to restore the program down in Rocky Mount. Then you transition again.
Then I go again.
And you transition back up north to DC, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
I don't remember exactly what you did in that role back to DC. So can you tell me a little bit about it and what triggered you to make that move back to DC?
Sure. Well, I came back to go to grad school. So I got into the master's program at George Washington University, got my master's in political management. So that was the shift. And one of the reasons was because now at this point, no one in my family had a master's degree. So now it wasn't just enough to be the first man to graduate. Now it's going to be the first person to get a master's. So there was that. So I came back and did grad school at night, and I worked full time during the day for Congressman G.K. Butterfield, who represented the first district, Greenville, who represented Rocky Mount. I knew him. It was literally the stars aligned. So I came back. I did grad school in 2 years, graduated, stayed on the Hill for a total of 3.5 years, working for Connor Lamb at the very end of that career, and then transitioned off the Hill to the private sector where I am now.
Man, I tell you, that's awesome that you went back to grad school, because you could have stayed, right? Again, you could have just stayed in Rocky Mount and continue to grow that program. You go up to DC. I want to talk about this next piece because I mentioned it before we came on the air. I don't think I've ever really known somebody from Harvard, because you're also now at Harvard, right? So again, what drove you then to continue your education and go to Harvard?
Well, I'm a lifelong learner, and these habits were ingrained in me as a kid. All my cousins, we all had pretty much the same upbringing. My grandmother, Libby, who is still with us, both my grandmothers are. I'm very blessed for that. But she was very, very much a proponent of education. On days we didn't have homework, you sat at the kitchen table and either copied out of the dictionary or the thesaurus for an hour. We memorized chapters of Bible chapters. Like I could still recite whole chapters. And then she would quiz you, and then you'd have to teach the cousin. So I grew up with this appreciation for it. And so, as I came over to the role that I am now with JP Morgan Chase, I thought it was a good opportunity I had a lot of energy. I didn't want to get a doctorate, but I did want to do something formative. And so I pursued a graduate certificate in social justice. I'm pursuing that now from Harvard, and it complements the work that I do working for the Global Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. So the reason I went to Harvard, I thought, if I'm going to go back to school and exhaust this much energy, it's got to be like top tier. So I thought, why not go for an Ivy League? Why not keep pushing the envelope? Why not?
Yes, yes.
And so I did that, and thankfully I got a full ride. So I literally had no excuse other than, do you want to do it or not? And I did, and so here we are.
And actually, one of my favorite pictures I've seen of you, you're kind of like sitting back and you have the crimson shirt on and it says Harvard.
Yeah.
I love that picture.
Yeah.
Because it symbolizes so much.
Mm.
It does symbolize so much that
Yep.
now there are young men and women of color that can look and go, I can do that.
Bingo.
Right? I can do that. And it really is a testament to who you are. And also the transitions you've made. Some people are afraid to take that leap of faith. Like they get this feeling, but they're afraid to take it. And hopefully somebody sees this and they go, I can do that.
Yeah.
Tremayne did this, and this is the boost I need. I'm going to go ahead and do that. I want to talk a little bit about your role at JP Morgan Chase. So it's the Global Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion.
That's right.
How did you come across that role, or how were you recruited into that role?
Well, I wasn't recruited. I said I want to do this, and so make the case for making the role. I started at JP Morgan with the Institute, which is in corporate responsibility. It's more of the think tank, public policy side of JP Morgan Chase. Had an amazing manager, Deanna Farrell. She was the president and CEO of the Institute. She's since left the firm, but an incredible leader, a great CEO, a very impressive thinker, an accomplished individual. So I decided, and kind of with her, like hedging, like work with me for 2 years and then let's figure out where you're going to go. And I really been partial to the D&I work and advancing advancing financial health and ending racial disparities for Black and Brown people in America. So we established this global office led by Brian Lamb, who is phenomenal. Look Brian Lamb up. That's from Florida. And I reached out to the chief of staff and was like, here's who I am. Here are my interests. If there are any roles coming up, and kept hounding them and making the case, and got an interview, and then here we are. So I'm the business management associate, and I one of my functions is I sit in the chief of staff's office, and I help to stand up and maintain the controls for D&I, access management, records management, do things with strategy and governance, all for the sake of this $30 billion commitment that the firm has produced to address racial equity in the country.
Cool, man. I tell you what, that is so awesome. And I know we've covered a lot of Tremayne Smith in just that, right, a short period of time. And I wanted to make sure I left some time to ask some of these other questions that I just wonder. But what was it like for you? I consider you such a beacon of ethical decision making, inspiration, and all you ever hear about politics and politicians in DC is how awful it is, and it'll just suck the life right out of you, right?
Yeah.
How did you stay true to who you were, who you were, who you want to be in that environment where things just seem to constantly be coming at you?
Well, I think that there are a few factors. One, my upbringing. I mean, I come from a very supportive, vocal, but strong family that will always have your back. You might not like what's being said, and usually you need to hear it, but always have your back. So when you walk around with that sort of that confidence ingrained in you, you're willing to take a few more risks, but also it keeps you grounded. And I never, I always try to be mindful that it wasn't the position that made me. It was like I was made for a purpose, and I'm on borrowed time, and these are borrowed talents. So I'm just using the tools. I don't own anything here. I'm not the creator. I'm the created. So let me do what I was created to do. So I kind of just had that mindset, and I kept a very close circle of friends around who cared a lot for me, who I could trust. We kept each other straight, honestly. And so I think I credit it to those factors. I'm sure there are others, but my family, my faith, and my friends really played a big role in that and continue to do that. And my fiance, let me tell you, will certainly not let my head get big. She's carrying around a pin because if it gets too big, just ready to pop it. So, hey, we all need it.
That's fine. So as I'm sitting here glowing about being able to sit down for about 40 minutes with Tremayne Smith, he's like, it's Tremayne, right? Like, why is this dude so excited? No, I'm just kidding. But it's one of those things that I always wonder, because you always seem so grounded, right?
Mm-hmm.
You never seem to let any moment take you to that place where you see a lot of people go, and it kind of ties into that saying where power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yeah.
Never saw that with you. You were always gracious and humble, that no matter where you were, you always seem to just attract people to you and embrace them and who they are. So with this next question that I have for you is, I mean, you spent a lot of time in DC.
Mm-hmm.
What was the coolest moment you had as far as meeting somebody in DC? And I have a feeling I know what it is, but I just want you to talk about it.
Well, and I had met him a few times, literally running into him. I kid you not, literally having upon him. But the first time was Father's Day 2011. I was in Georgetown, wandering alone, just getting some ice cream. And we're at Thomas Sweet. And all of a sudden, there are these SUVs that show up, and I'm thinking, oh my, like a movie star. This is DC. There's no movie star. A politician. It was made me even more excited. So I thought, oh, it'll be a senator, or maybe even the first family. In walks President Barack Obama, in dad jeans, Jesus slippers, and a button down, and shook his hand. We're all just aghast. He's in line with us ordering ice cream. I'm on my BlackBerry, or was it a Razor? It was a long time ago. On the phone, ice cream with the president. There's a video of this. So that was the coolest encounter. And getting the fist bump him and say, Happy Father's Day, Mr. President. I'll never get over that. Ever, ever, ever.
Man, that's so cool. Right? And I'm envious of that. And I hope people can realize, regardless of whatever side, Republican or Democrat, I hope the one thing people can appreciate with Barack Obama was the dedication to being a family man.
Bingo.
The caring and loving he showed his wife and children.
Mm-hmm.
The care that he always showed people around. He never, at least for me, right,
Mm-hmm.
never appeared to come off mean, nasty, and ugly, even when probably the situation warranted.
Right.
That if he'd done it right, it's like, well, somebody was mean and nasty. He's going to be. So to me, that's one of the coolest things. I knew the story was going to involve the president, but I didn't realize it was going to be that cool.
Yeah.
Right? That is really cool. So that was a meeting. Can you tell me maybe a conversation you had with somebody from a political standpoint that really stuck with you, that went, wow, that conversation had a lot more meat to it than I thought it was going to have?
You know what? Actually, it was with my former boss, Congressman G.K. Butterfield. He still represents the North Carolina 1st District. Impressive guy, former Supreme Court Justice in North Carolina, civil rights lawyer, and 8-term congressman, 9 maybe at this point. But it was when I was leaving his office. I was leaving to go work for Connor Lamb, who had won a special election in Pennsylvania and who's now running for the Senate. But we were driving around, and I was like, Congressman, and I phrased this so tactfully. I said, Congressman Butterfield, I was like, someone like you who has more yesterdays than tomorrows, what do you have to give someone like me? And he just gave me just this very grandfatherly advice about not letting things burn you down, treat people, treat them well, enjoy life, do good. I wrote these things down, but it was so real. And this is he was chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, chief deputy whip of the Democratic Caucus, a leader in Congress. And he's saying, be a good person, make sure you take care of yourself, slow it down, and do good. I mean, that was profound to me. And I continue to keep that with me to this day.
So what are you doing to help you decompress, right? You have a lot going on in your life. What are some of the things you do that allow you to maintain your your mental health and your physical well-being?
Sure, because and pardon the cough, the change of the season, so we don't have the air conditioning. So just pardon the cough.
I was about to say, in Florida, we still got AC blowing like
Oh my
big time.
gosh,
Right?
can you imagine? But one of the things I do every morning, I'm a regimented person, and I think this is part for my success, if you will. I'm very consistent. So in the mornings, I go up on the rooftop and I have my morning coffee and I do my devotion. I call my mom every morning from the roof. Stay grounded. You got to keep people close. I just sometimes sit and think through tough things, hard things. When I feel stressed, I literally go up and put it right in my face. What am I stressed about? And also, I have a very good community here in DC. We have some really cool neighbors here in our building. The Sweeneys, they live down the hall.
I was about to say, is that Danielle Sweeney that said the rooftop?
Oh yeah, Dan
chat?
Sweeney, Dan and Kate. Yeah. I mean, just keep surrounded with people who are just so you can just take a collective exhale. We've all been through a lot the past year plus. So those are the things to do for my mental health. Physical health, need to get back into the gym more, kind of in the gym, finding time to get outside, and just do things that make me happy.
Oh, cool. So this next question, and we're covering a lot of different things, but I know you're big into music. Are you still playing the French horn? Are you still playing the music? Are you still doing those things that you did that you were so influential to students when they were at Rocky Mount? Are you still practicing?
Sure. Well, not so much horn these days, just because as live groups start to get back up, maybe I'll audition for some groups here, but I do have a keyboard, so I still play. We sing a lot in this house. We dance a lot in this house. And even a few years ago, I had the opportunity, my former band director, and who encouraged me to be a band director, Tammy Wortman. Now, she was Tammy Reyes all of my formative life. She and her now husband invited me down to Catawba County to be the guest clinicians for an all-county honor band. And that was just one of the joys of my life. So I really want to get back into being a clinician. So if you're out there listening, you need a clinician for an honor band, I'm your man. I promise it'll be a good time. But yeah, I hope to get back involved in music and maybe even start to do some theater, because that's a side of life I've not gotten to really explore much of.
Cool. Thank you so much for that. Now I want to kind of make another jump back to your position at JP Morgan Chase. Yeah. You had made the mention of social justice is a big part of what you're doing. What are some of the initiatives or things that are going on at JP Morgan Chase that you think are going to have a good, strong, positive impact on the world today?
Absolutely. Well, as I mentioned earlier, we have this $30 billion commitment to advance racial equity. And what this does, just to generalize it, it does three things. One, it addresses the racial wealth gap in America. It reduces systemic barriers and systemic racism for Black and Latinx communities, because these things are baked in the cake. And if we've seen, it's so baked into the cake that if you speak out against racism in America, people think you're speaking out against America. It's that ingrained. So we're really putting our money where our mouth is and trying to undo some of that. And then lastly, it's to support our employees in various ways. So I'm really proud to work for this company. I'm really proud that we've committed this capital, that we've committed the people, and I have no doubt that we will bring about positive and lasting change that's so badly needed.
Cool. Thank you so much for sharing that. And the last question I have for you before we get into your final little segment, you've done so many things in your life, and you've done them at such a high level. So my question is, do you ever look back at anything and go, man, if I could do that over again, I might do this a little differently? And I'm not saying it from like, oh, I regret, but if you looked at something and you went, oh man, if I just did it this way, it may have gone a little bit better. Or if I didn't do this, it may have this may have gone a little bit smoother. Is there anything you look back on and go, "Oh, I wish I would have done that maybe a little bit different"?
Yeah, I remember it was in college, my freshman year, first semester, because it was a stinging reality wake up, sobering call. My freshman year, I took a general political science class. I thought, okay, I got this, I can coast. Needless to say, I didn't realize music was such a rigorous major. I mean, it was like an 18 credit per semester major.
Yeah, I'm realizing that with my daughter. I thought this is going to be a simple thing. You play music, you'll be good.
No.
Yeah. Oh no, yeah, it is intense.
And so I thought I could coach to this political science class, and it kicked my butt. And I remember I got, no, actually it was sophomore year. Dr. Evans' case. She's Rhonda Evans now, professor at UT Austin. Hook 'em horns. I love her to death. She was my constitutional law professor. And on my first test, I got a 7 out of 100, a 7.
Oh, what? Wow.
So I thought, I'm going to have to drop this class. I thought, no, I'm going to stick it out. I'm going to really study and do better. Needless to say, those first tests were tough to weed people out. And so on the one hand, while I did express regret for not studying harder, and it was worse than failing, I was proud that I stuck it through, and we are very good friends to this day.
Man, that's a great story. And this is why I like the story. You got a 7, and most people would just say, forget that. This is not for me. But you stuck it out.
Yeah.
You stuck it out. You grinded it out. And it shows that you can come back. Right? Oh, I love it. So my mom was like, "Ooh,
yeah."
Right?
But it's tough to beat someone who never gives up. It's tough.
That is true. That is so true. So as we wrap things up, I felt like there's so much more we could cover. I want to give this last part to you to impart anything that you would like to talk about. It's called the Rant and Rave with Dave. It doesn't necessarily have to be a negative thing, but anything that you would like to leave our audience with, just some final thoughts or tidbits of advice that you'd like to share. Tremayne, the floor is yours.
Sure. Well, first of all, let me just again say I appreciate very much this opportunity to first of all just see you again and chat with you. I mean, you're just a fantastic person. And to the people who are tuning in or who will watch this, I will say this: we've all been through a great deal this past year, just collectively. I don't want people to think about this only as a trying time and, we've gone through so much wrong and there's so much negativity. Think about it this way. Unstable environments cause us to activate core strengths, like an exercise ball. You get on that ball, your abs immediately contract. Think of this time, this instability, as a time where we are activating our core strengths. So we're really seeing what we're made of and how strong we really are and how good we really are. Let's keep that about us as we get through this pandemic and as we go on through life. And I'll just end it by saying in 2032, I absolutely plan to become the next president of the United States. It'll be a campaign that's focused on common sense, decency, and progress. Feet planted in reality, pointed towards progress. So keep that in mind. And I want you all to just be good, be kind, love one another. And thank you very much for listening to this broadcast.
So you said 2032, correct?
2032.
All right. Everybody's heard it here, 2032. And I remember when I was talking to my wife about having you on the show, I said, I very well could be getting an interview with the future president of the United States of America. Right? I was like, yeah, this is awesome. Tremayne, thank you so much for joining me this evening. I truly appreciate you. For all of you that are tuning in, next week, we're going to be having an amazing guest. She was also at the ECU Pirate Nation with me. She was part of the leadership program, Dr. Christine Jehu, also known as the real Dr. Jehu. She does sports psychology. She is going to be my guest. We're going to be talking about all things mental health and what people can be doing just to kind of make themselves feel better and just looking at a lot of the things in this world and just having an honest conversation between two people that were part of the leadership program at ECU, where we hashtag Day 7. It's all about what you do after the program, living life going forward. So to everybody that tuned in, thank you so much. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Roll the Dice with Dave and Tremayne. Thank you again so much for joining me this evening. You have truly, truly, truly uplifted my spirits. and I'm ready to take on another day. I hope you have a great rest of your night and great week. And congratulations again on your engagement.
Thank you. God bless you.